One of the great things about the Lee-Fendall House is we really have a lot of stories to tell, and we have a lot of opportunities to tell these stories. I mean, the Lee-Fendall House is a story of all sorts of different people that lived here from the time the house was built in 1785 into the mid-20th century, from business owners to labor union leaders to enslaved servants to other household staff. And then, of course, you have men and women and children. So just a ton of different stories. And one of the things that we've been refocusing on with our new mission statement that we rolled out within the last year is really trying to tell these stories. And that's one of the motivations behind this new exhibit, is to really focus on something that we haven't really focused on before. So this exhibit on the new women is really highlighting women in the Lee-Fendall House at a very specific and at a very exciting time for women in history, that being the Progressive Era just before the passing of the 19th Amendment.
So with the upcoming 100-year anniversary of women receiving the right to vote, we really wanted to dig into the story of the women who were living at the Lee-Fendall House during that very transformative period of time, from about 1890 to 1920. And we were very lucky that we had in our archive a very rich resource connected to one of the women who lived here at that time. Her name was Maud Downham. She was actually a sister to the guy who buys the house in 1903, and we had a bunch of photographs, scrapbooks that she kept when she was up at preparatory school that really gave us a glimpse into women's lives during this time period. And we used that sort of as a springboard to explore 3 women who were here connected to the house during those years. And we wanted to talk about how women's lives changed in terms of they're becoming more mobile, they're becoming involved in things like athletics, they're bicycling around to get places, much more freedom of movement for women at that time. They're gaining rights in terms of politics and legal rights for the first time, and so it's just a very interesting period to explore. So a lot of people don't realize the work that goes into preparing an exhibit like this one. For example, is that we started out knowing that we wanted to explore these women's lives, but we had to do a lot of research to make some of the connections that we wanted to make. So for example, we didn't know when we started whether any of these 3 women were involved with the suffrage movement. That was something that we didn't have in our records. So we had to comb through some of the Women's Equal Suffrage League archives down in Richmond, and we were just sort of combing through these lists of women's names. They had signed various petitions across the state supporting women's suffrage, and basically had to go name by name. And we were very lucky to find the name of one of the ladies, May Greenwell Downham. And so we knew from that she was a supporter of women's suffrage, and just finding information in sort of the most weird places, like having to comb through newspaper records and just old collections of photographs of the city, just trying to look and see. We knew some of the women were involved in various theater productions, so we wanted to find photographs and sort of playbills connected to different performances. So we went everywhere, from the local library here in Alexandria to the Library of Congress to Richmond. So there was a lot of research and work involved in sort of fleshing out these stories. So we're going through our collection here at the museum to try to pull items for the exhibit. We've come across a couple of interesting things. We wanted to share one of them with you today. We have here, of course, a stereoscope, which would have been a very popular sort of form of entertainment in the 1890s. Basically, it made images look very sort of 3D, and it looked like you were sort of in the scene. And stereo view cards we had quite a few of them in our collection, and we realized that we had a couple of them that were quite amusing and very related to the theme of our exhibit, which focused on sort of changes for women, sort of changing gender roles during this era. And a lot of popular forms of entertainment and magazines, they weren't really happy with the changes that were going on. They were sort of uncomfortable with them, so they mocked them. We found that with some of these stereo view cards here. If you sort of zoom in on this one, you can see that it's showing this image of the woman of the house just sort of kicking back, reading, relaxing, and then the husband is the one who is doing all of the laundry. And the title of this particular stereo view is called Women's Rights. So obviously a very critical, sort of satirical take on what's happening in society during this time. And so we found a couple of these stereo view cards that related to that sort of uncomfortableness with change. So one of the very amusing documents that we discovered in the scrapbooks that Maud Downham kept when she was at preparatory school was this gem here. This was, we've sort of blown it up for you to better visualize and see, but this was from a newspaper, and it was an article entitled Some Don'ts for the Woman Bicyclist. And just to give you a little bit of context, in the 1890s, women started riding bicycles like crazy. They were it was a great way for them to exert independence and travel without any sort of restrictions. So you see a lot of women on bicycles during this era, and obviously this is sort of mocking in its tone, but it's saying that women shouldn't do certain things when they're riding bicycles. So a couple of funny examples is don't wear tight garters. Don't boast of your long rides. So all of these things that they're discouraging women from doing if they are going to ride a bicycle. And Maud Downham obviously found this amusing, and she cut it out and pasted it in her scrapbook in the 1890s. So you'll be able to see this on display during